My name is Teresa Kennedy, and I would like to welcome you all here today as we gather here to celebrate Mark's life and bid him a sad and a fond farewell. We so feel for all of Mark's family today. Mark, as we know, was only 59 and should still have had many years of memories yet to make with them all. So today for them is an unimaginable one. So your ongoing love and support is vitally important for the difficult times that lie ahead for them. And we also feel so much today for Helen, Mark's mum, who can't be with us here in person. She will see the service later on, but she is with us all very much in her thoughts and her heart. Up until this year, Mark was a very fit and active man. But very sadly, he was diagnosed with cancer in February, a cancer that he was determined to fight, which he did. Mark endured many treatments, also an operation. But this was a battle he sadly couldn't win. And as we know, Mark passed away very peacefully at home, his mother's home, the place that he was born, surrounded by all of his family. All his life, Mark was a happy chappie, always smiling, always cheery. Even as a bairn, he was also a hard-working man, and he got on well with everyone he met through life. He was so well known and liked, as we can see in here today. But most of all for Mark, he was a true family man. As we know, he just adored his mum. He stayed with her for most of his life. They were always very close, and he would do anything for her. But just don't ask Mark to do anything DIY. He was really no good at that, apart from just cutting the grass. As his mum said, though, he was always a good boy, apart from his two brothers, who are here, were the opposite. They were a pair of rascals. Now, Mark was a much-loved dad to Lisa, and in later years adored granddad to Corey and Aaron, also a dear brother, uncle and father-in-law to Raymond. As we know, as I mentioned, his mum is Helen, and his dad was the late John, and he was one of 7 children: Jacqueline, Helen, Carol, John, Sharon and the bairn Alan. Now, his dad John was a bus driver at the time, and the family lived in the present family home, which has been for the last 63 years, as this was the house that Helen and John moved into just 2 years after they were married. So he's been a Douglas boy all these days. With living in a cul-de-sac, it really was a happy way of life. There was lots of other children to play with, and those days, well, you were outside with your pals. There was great adventures for youngsters then, and with Douglas being a relatively new scheme, there was play parks and football parks all around. But at home, it could be quite crammed at times, as it was a 2-bedroomed house. So the 4 girls all shared a room, as did the 3 boys, poor mum and dad in the living room. So a very busy home, but a very happy home, each of them looking out for each other. They told me they were just truly like the Waltons, and they would even shout those good nights, just like you heard the Waltons on the telly. So in those days, you at first got bathed in the metal tub in front of the fire. Then eventually you were promoted to the sink. And finally, when you were around 20, you managed to get a bath. Now, you didn't get much toys in those days, and a big thing for the kids was watching the raindrops run down the windows if they were all stuck indoors. They would all pick a raindrop and hope that theirs got to the bottom first. As much as a big family, they were always given the best that John and Helen could. It was those days, if you remember, of the clubby books, so Helen and John were very good at saving up for all the presents. In later years, when the family started leaving home and they got more space, a big thing for Mark and his brothers was a pool table in their bedroom and a dartboard. So if there had been tenants in a Carling glass available, it would have just been like a pub. But at New Year, it actually was a bit like a pub. Helen and John would sometimes go down to their neighbours, so the boys would lower a basket out of their bedroom window as the Taylor children down below would then oblige them with drinks, like half a can that had been left, the dregs, and the boys, well, they would do exactly the same for them from their house. Now, school for Mark was St Andrews, then on to St Saviour's, and Mark was a clever lad and he did very well at school. He was good at doing his homework. They were all actually good at school apart from one who shall be nameless in here today. I'll give you a hint, as usual, the youngest of the bunch. Now, Mark started working at a young age. He was doing a paper round on a Sunday. Now, this, in those days, was done out of a pram. It was a Mr Lowe who did this, and he'd his pram filled with the Sunday papers, and the boys would then run to the doors with him after the usual shout of a Sunday Post, News of the World and the Mail. Now, there was no jetting off for holidays in those days, so a treat would be going down to the grassy beach, walking, of course, for a picnic. At Easter, there was always a picnic at Camperdown or Baxter's Park. You had to work out how long the walk was first before heading off, so that it didn't take too long. But those outings, they were wonderfully happy times, and quite often extended family would be there as well. And another thing that Mark very looked forward to in his younger years, well, that was his Victor comic that he would get every week. Now, when Mark got a bit older, he joined the BBs, and he loved that. It was there he learned to play the chanter, and he could eventually play the pipes as well. Now, this could be noisy at home, as you can imagine, when he was practising. But he also loved the summer camps. He really looked forward to those. He would go twice a year to the camps, which were really for him like a holiday. He was always a popular boy. He had lots of friends, so they would be there with him as well. Now, Mark really enjoyed all the sports. They would get to do canoeing, they would be jumping off rocks, all the things that you would not be allowed to do nowadays for health and safety. But Mark did suffer quite a bad fall when he was a teenager. He fell down the stairs, racing his sister to get down to the bottom. So he broke his hip. Now, this was hard on Mark as he loved his sport, especially his football. But his hip was never really quite the same after that. So Mark supported Dundee all his days. He was a loyal supporter, but his dad John and brother John both supported the opposition, which could lead to quite good banter in the house at times. And the family would all know whose team won if they were playing each other. As the losing supporters, well, they would head home for their tea, and the winners, they would be out for the night. Now, over the years, Mark has been at many matches, both at home and away, and he's even been at Tannadice. So in leaving school, Mark started working at Merrymate, which is where Mark has been employed all his working days, around 40 years. It's now known as Sappy Rockwell Solution. Mark was always a very conscientious man, never had a day off in life until recently due to his illness. He was a forklift driver, but he made his way up to be a supervisor. As I said, he worked there for many years. He was well liked at his work, where he made a lot of friends. Once again, you can see that today. His work actually said that, in a nutshell, everyone would say the same thing about Mark. He was a top man, he was a great worker, always willing to help everyone and always liking to crack jokes and have a laugh. Mark will be sorely missed by them all, as he was a big part of the workforce, and he liked to have a wee moan when more work was added, but he always got it done, and he cracked a wee smile when it was done. No one, not anybody, ever had a bad word to say about him. He was, as we heard, very well liked at his work, and he's now going to be so missed by them all. Now at the weekends, he would like to go for a pint. Tenants, of course, in a Carling glass. Mark believed for some reason that you got a better pint in a Carling glass. So at first it would be off to Castaways. Now previous to this, when his big sisters got older, Mark from the age of 16 would get smuggled into the pub by his sisters. This was to Joey's clubby, where they also played bingo. But Mark was always very good to his sisters, and he would give them money if they were short. And on a Sunday, well, it'd be off to Teasers if they'd won the bingo to go to the disco. He then met and married Leslie, and this is when daughter Lisa arrived. Leslie already had her son Brian, who Mark got on really well with, and he would take Brian along to the football. But he also started Lisa when she was older at the football, and she supported the same team when she was little. She supported United actually, but it was when Mark took her along to a match and they sat in the Dundee end, well, she thought she'd better support them too. But Mark and Leslie parted, but they have remained good friends and a part of each other's lives as the years have went on. But Mark's life, it totally revolved around Lisa. Better known as Toots to her dad. And she'd be with her dad every single weekend, which she loved. They have always been very close to each other. He was always an active dad with Lisa, lots of swimming, lots of days out, movies. They always shared great times together, and as I said, she was always his Toots. He was a loving dad, encouraging, just wanting Lisa to do well in her own life, and she could go to her dad with anything, whether it was good or bad, and he was always there for her. But she was a bit scared to tell him when she was expecting Corey, but he was delighted with the news that he was going to be a granddad. I now have some very special words from Lisa, then Corey and Aaron to share with you all. First from Lisa. When the carnival would come to Dundee, my dad would always take me when I was younger, and he always took me on the big rides because he knew that I wouldn't go on my own. And when I got my first house, it was Dad that was there helping to decorate and move furniture. The same when I moved to my second home. But he said he would leave the heavy lifting to the younger ones. Any time that I would tell him something had broken the house, he'd go and buy me a new one and he would pay for it. But ironically, the day after Dad passed away, my washing machine broke, and it was the first time that I couldn't phone my dad. Dad was also very proud, walking me down the aisle. He welcomed my husband Raymond into the family with open arms. I have been with Raymond since 2004, but we didn't get married till 2014, even though Raymond supports Dundee United. On the day of the wedding, Dad actually lost his speech on the way to the venue, so he just had to then wing it. He wasn't one for public speaking, but he did a great job. Raymond has told me that on his stag do, my dad was buying him whiskey, and he told Dad that Lisa doesn't like me drinking whiskey. But Dad's response was, Lisa's not here, so they had a great laugh. Another memory I have is when I was a teenager and not spending every day of the weekend then with my dad. But he would take the opportunity to go to the pub, Castaways, to watch the football. And I would meet him outside with my cousin Dawn to get my pocket money. But he was such a kind-hearted man that he would end up giving the both of us pocket money to spend. Any time that I would be in a night out in Dundee, I would always phone my dad to meet up with him for a drink. Almost every time he was in McDaniel's, or if he wasn't there, that would be our meet-up place. We would regularly meet up, go out for lunch, sometimes just me and him, or sometimes with the children as well. Or if he was up at my house, we would order in a takeaway from the Indian. Dad loved a curry, but we would always end up ordering far too much, so he would tell me to keep it for supper, and then Dad would always send me a message to make sure that it had been eaten. When I was younger, he would always make a point of coming to see me on Christmas Day if I wasn't with him on that day, even just for a couple of hours, and that continued right up until I was 19 and moved to Forfar with my own family. I spent a lot of New Year's with Dad at Grand's house when I was younger, and all the family would come up for big family dinners and some drinks. He would always give me Overgate vouchers for my birthdays and Christmases, and he would never moan if I made him wander round the shop for hours with me just to spend them all. When I was working in a coffee shop at the weekends, he would come in every Saturday for his pot of tea and a jam and cream scone, which he always got free because everybody I worked with knew my dad and thought he was just great. Even when I wasn't working, he would still go in and he never had to pay a penny. My dad has really been a rock in my life, and I hope that we all continue to make my dad proud, and we will always have him in our hearts. And from Aaron. He remembers his granddad would come to the house, knock on the door and then hide from him. He would always ask if he could come in, and Aaron would always say yes, then go through his bag to see what sweeties that he had brought. Aaron would always bring his big bunny house and toys downstairs and make his granddad play with them. And he always wanted to look in Grandad's pockets to see if he'd any change, and then look in his wallet to find the big pennies. Aaron used to always steal his granddad's cup of tea. They enjoyed video calling each other, and this did start during COVID when they couldn't see each other. Aaron would always put on funny backgrounds on the call, making Grandad laugh, and both he and Corrie always told their Grandad that he thought they looked like Jack from Still Game. And finally from Corrie. Corrie remembers going to the cinema with them. They would always get lots of sweets and lots of crisps, and Grandad looked after Corrie most weekends until he was around 5. Lisa and Raymond, they'd be working at the weekends. So he would take him along to parks or soft play, then he would take him up to his house and make him macaroni for his tea. And he also remembers his granddad putting a Lady Gaga music video on in the house, and Corrie actually got scared and hid behind the couch, giving him a great laugh. Now, Corrie is a Dundee United supporter, so there was always even more football banter between them, just taking the mickey out of each other if one team got beat. But his granddad did buy Corrie a Dundee baby grow when he was little, and there is photographic evidence of that. I would now like to share a very special poem with you all from Corrie and Aaron for their granddad. Grandad, you held our hands when we were small, and you caught us when we fell. You're the hero of our childhoods and our later years as well. And every time we think of you, Grandad, our hearts still fill with pride. And though we will always miss you, Grandad, we know you're still by our sides. So in laughter and in sorrow and in sunshine and through the rain, we know that you're still watching over us, Grandad, until we meet again. Now, he was also a much-loved uncle, with once again being back living with his mum. Well, he saw a lot of the children, as he did also, of course, his brothers and sisters. And he used to frighten all the young ones with his false teeth, and he would do his famous invisible man trick. So he would kid on that he would throw an invisible man into the air and then catch him in a crisp bag. And he would make a noise of something landing in the bag, which the kids all loved. So just ask Lisa afterwards to see the video if you haven't seen it. I got a personal showing myself of the trick from the Baden, but of course he had to go one better. The Baden had to use a huge big Asda bag. But his nieces and nephews, Catherine, Scott, Hayley, Cheryl, Bobby, Darryl, Lisa, Marie, Dwayne, John Lee, Sarah, Dale, Suzanne, Dawn, Erin and Jenna, and then later all the great nieces and nephews, all really loved their Uncle Mark. So for Mark, he did like to keep to his routine. As we know, he was back living with Mum, and he was great company for her after his much-loved dad, John, passed away. He would often go to the pub previous to this with his dad. They'd go to Joey's and to the bookies. They both liked a wee flutter and the horses and the football. And they would sometimes get lucky. And Helen always knew if the faces were tripping them when they came home that they had been unlucky. But Mark was very like his dad. They had the same traits. They were good, honest, hard-working men. Just the simple pleasures in life, with family always coming first. And he was heartbroken, as were all of his family, when his dad passed. For Helen and all the family now, they do get comfort that maybe Mark and his dad are once again together having a wee pint and a wee punt. So life went on like this for Mark, but he also then liked to get away for a holiday as well, and he's been on many boys' holidays, of course, often with his brother John and his pals from the pub. Now, Mark was often called OJ or Marco at the pub. OJ because he got away with everything. That took me a wee bit of thinking to get that one. But Lisa, she was worse. She actually thought it meant that her dad drank orange juice at the pub when she was younger. So these holidays, I went off to Turkey a lot. Mark loved Turkey. He liked the entertainment, the strippers, etc. Sorry, Sandra. Also, unusually, he liked the Effis beer, and he also loved the food, just trying different things. Going on boat trips in the Black Sea, and also his cheap watches, he loved them. He has plenty of Rolexes. It was only through his brother John that he went. He got his very first passport at 42, and he never looked back. He also went to Germany, then Bratislava and Benidorm. As the children had all grown now, he would go in their stag do's as well, and he was often the life and the soul of the party, and quite often the last man standing as well. So with staying with Mum, Mark, as I said, has always been a huge part of his family's lives. Christmas, as we heard earlier from Lisa, was always spent at his sister Helen's or Carol's and their families, along with his mum. Mark loved Christmas Day, but he really loved his Christmas dinner, and he would join in all the games, and he always had presents for everybody. As Lisa said, her and the boys were always given far too much. There are no words of comfort just now for all of Mark's family. His loss has left the world a very different place for them all, but they'll always remember his smile, his voice, his great presence in their lives, and he will remain forever young in their hearts. We're now going to take a few moments to think about Mark, the times that you have all shared with him, special memories that you've all made with Mark over the years. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for all the good times and the many happy memories. Thank you for your love and thank you for your friendship. But thank you most of all, Mark, for just being you. And we are truly grateful for having shared our lives with you. And if we can learn from your experiences in life or profit from your example, well, perhaps we will live better lives for just having known you. So rest inside the hearts and the minds of all who loved you and be at peace, Mark. I would now like to share a final poem with you all, which has been chosen by Mark's family for today. God saw you getting tired when a cure was not to be, so he wrapped his arms around you and he whispered, "Come to me." You didn't deserve what you went through, so he gave you the rest. God's garden, it must be beautiful because he only takes the best. And when I saw you sleeping so peaceful and free from pain, I could not wish you back to suffer that again. Once again, can I please, on behalf of Mark's family, thank you all for your comforting presence here today. We would also like to thank all those family, friends and neighbours for the many cards, kindness shown and support shown to them since Mark passed away. It really has meant so much to them all. And they would also like to thank Yvonne and Jamie, all the staff here from Ashton and McHugh Funeral Directors, for the care and the compassion that they've all shown in the preparation for Mark's service here today. And also a heartfelt thanks to the Marie Curie nurses and also the Macmillan nurses for all the care that they gave to Mark. This was once again very much appreciated by his family. And there is an opportunity to make a donation in Mark's memory for the Marie Curie nurses as you leave the service. You're all warmly invited to the McDaniel's pub after the graveside service to raise a glass to Mark and share your own personal memories of Mark along with his family. Those of you who are not attending the graveside service, please feel free to make your way there now, and the family will join with you there on the return. This first part of the service for Mark is over, so let us now accompany Mark on his final journey. And just before we go, I would like to thank the family for the wonderful hospitality, especially Sandra's egg sandwiches. They're absolutely amazing, and my apologies once again for dropping the coffee all over the carpet. Mark's life here has now ended far too soon, and I know there are no words to truly express the sadness that surrounds all of you whose lives Mark touched. But how do we let somebody go? And how do we say, I'm ready now to go on without you? How can we ever have a clue of what that really means? And then all of a sudden, this moment is upon us, and there is no turning back, and then we know what grief is. But there is peace too, peace and acceptance and overwhelming love that maybe we weren't aware of, and laughter too. And so many memories that we'd not bothered lately to recall, they all come flooding back. And we have shared just a very small part of some of those special memories earlier today. None of us knows what happens when we take leave of this world that we live in, and then we go on our next journey. But it would be so nice to think that Mark, in some way, he'll still always be around you. And when we lose someone we love, we then realise that we ourselves also cannot live and stay around forever. And we then think about our own mortality, and that one day we too will also say goodbye to this world that we live in. When we lose someone we love, it seems then that time, it just stands still. And what moves through us is a silence, a quiet sadness, a longing to have just one more day, one more word, or one more touch. And we may not understand why you left this earth so soon, or why you left before we were ready to say goodbye. But little by little, we begin to remember not just that you died, Mark, but that you lived, and that your life has given so many people memories that shall never be forgotten. I would now like to hand you over to Jamie, our funeral director today, till we take our final leave of Mark.
Okay, please can I ask the cord holders come forward. First of all, the head cord, please. Okay, first right, please, just to this side here. Second right, please. Just this side here as well. Third right, please. First left, please. Just to this side here. So. Second left. Just you. Third left. And the foot cord, please. Okay, just let the cord slip through your hands, please. And release your cord into the grave. Step back down to level ground, please.
Mark, go forth from this world knowing that you are loved beyond measure, that you will be missed more than words can say, that you will be remembered and cherished, and that love will never end. And as we now hold your memory inside our hearts and send you on your final journey, may you forever rest in peace, Mark, with the certain knowledge that all those who loved you, that love, it goes along with you. I would now like to share a very special final poem with you all, which has been written by Mark's brother Alan for today. Our brother Mark has passed away. There's not really much that we can say. We're hurting and sad, but we know you'll be happy beside our dad. Lisa was top notch through all of this, and you, my brother, we will sadly miss. Our family and mates will eventually meet at the gates, and it's you, our brother, who will initiate. The long and the short is, we're a family as one, and none of us now can believe that you're gone. So this is my ode to my brother and mate. I hope to see you at a later date. I hope I spend my penance in a darlings class. Oops, sorry brother, I meant my tenants in a carling glass. R.I.P. Marco. Once again, can I thank everybody from the family for your comforting presence here today. Also a reminder to join them all for a cup of tea afterwards. Once again, they would like me to thank Jamie Anderson, Yvonne, all the staff from Ashton McHugh Funeral Directors, and also all the staff here at the graveside, the crematorium. And anybody that has made a journey to be here today, please all do have a very safe journey back to your own homes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.